Hey guys, 5 Minute Photoshop here with another video, and today we're going to take a look at realistically adding large objects into a Photoshop document. So when you're doing photo manipulation, I find that adding big things into a picture is what a lot of people have the most trouble with, and it makes sense. Small things, they aren't obvious, so it's not as easy to see the flaws in them. Your eyes aren't focused on them as much. But to add large things, you kind of have to make sure you have everything right. So today I'm going to show you how to add a large train into this picture here behind the guy sitting on the tracks. And this is a very specific picture, but the methods I use in this can be applied to pretty much anything. So the three most obvious things you have to look at when adding large images is that the lighting has to be either very close to your starting picture or be close enough that you're confident you can fix it in Photoshop. The second thing that you have to pretty much have perfect is the cutout. And the third thing is the angle. You don't want the perspective to be all screwed up. So I found this train here. And to be honest, there were quite a few better options that I could have picked. But I picked this one so that, to make a little bit of challenge for myself and so that I could show you guys more methods of fixing lighting and things like that. First thing we need to do is the cutout, and there are a few ways to do this, but the way I'm going to do it is with the magic wand and the refine edge tool. The magic wand and the refine edge is a very powerful tool if you use it properly. So you can see now that if we just go ahead and cut this out, what we have is we have some really jagged pixely edges over here. And even over here, it's not even fully cut out. And if we were to paste this in right now to the other picture, this coloring difference here on the edge with these jagged edges, it would just really not look good. So using the refine edge tool, we're gonna keep this selected here. We're gonna go to refine edge, and we're gonna have a few options here. So we have radius, which is kind of like it's kind of like a blur on the edge. You can see that fully it brings in or out it brings in the edge, includes more by kind of a blur method. So we're just going to put a little bit on that, and then smooth is a good tool to use. We're going to want to smooth out those edges, add maybe a little bit of feather so when you paste it in, it has more of a realistic feel to it. And then you're going to shift the edge inwards just a little bit so we make sure that we get rid of all the sky that's in the picture. And if we take this selection now and we get rid of this, we can see the edges along here are almost perfect. They're totally clear. Along here, we weren't quite far enough in with the edge, so maybe we could have even upped the tolerance a little bit and tried that again. And we don't want to shift the edge too far on this part because it's gonna cut into our thing there. But if you really wanted to, you could just grab the eraser tool or use a mask or whatever to just kind of soften up these edges here, and get it how you want it. I'm not going to show you the whole cutout because it would take a really long time. That's basically what you're just going to want to do for the entire thing, to get all the edges everywhere, get all the spots, make sure you're not missing anything, and eventually you're going to end up with a finished cutout that hopefully looks something like this. So you can see all the edges are pretty good. When you get really zoomed in, you're gonna see some pixelation, but I mean that's unavoidable. The picture itself just isn't even that high resolution, but it's not really a big deal for us. We don't need a picture that high res. But all the edges are pretty smooth. They're pretty good. You can go ahead and paste this in to your other document or duplicate the layer, however you want to do it. Sure. And you can place it however you want on the tracks. I actually already cut out the head here, so I can put it behind the head. But I might even make it smaller and not place it there anyways. So I think I'll place it, maybe around here for now. You can resize it however you want to do it. Now, even as you can see with the cutout and the angle matching, it's not bad. It's pretty close, but there are a few really glaring things that we have to take a look at here. One is the clarity. As you can see, the train is in a part of the picture that is not in focus. The focus is over here. You can see these trees here are pretty much perfectly in focus. But if we go out and look at them back here, they're not in focus at all. So to fix this, we're going to want to use probably the lens blur, and you're going to want to try to get something that's not not a radius that's too extreme, but something that will match it up with the picture that's behind. So you don't want to go too high, because that's just you can barely even see what the hell it is, but too low and it won't really make a difference. So you can kind of fool around with it and get a value that you think would be right for whatever your image is, whatever you're working with. Maybe this isn't even a factor in yours, I don't know. But for this one, I think I'm going to go with maybe a 15 or a 16. And this should make a pretty noticeable difference. Yeah, as you can see. That might even be a little bit high, but I think I kind of wanted to make this smaller anyways. So maybe it should look okay anyways in the picture, since it's going to be a little further back. Okay, so the third thing is, like we talked about, is lighting. Now, there's a big deal here with the lighting in the lighting differences in these two images. In this one, when we had, you could see it was not cloudy at all. It was blue sky, which means that the sun was over here somewhere and it was shining right down on this train. See that there's a very clear line where the sun is shining and where the shadow of the train is. So right from on this side, it's very bright. On this side, it's not very bright. Same with over here. The sun's shining right on this here. It's not here whatsoever. In our image over here, it's overcast. It's completely overcast. It's very cloudy. There's no sun. If we zoom in on the guy here, the difference in lighting is not nearly as severe. There's lighting on his arm here, same lighting on his arm here. His face is pretty much lit the same way, and that goes for the entire image. So I've adjusted the train accordingly to make the lighting differences much less severe. It's still not perfect, but it's a lot less noticeable than it was previously. With our original example here, you can see it's much more severe in this. So the trick to doing this is, one, to match the lighting on either side of this image to the other side. The obvious side to do it with is going to be the lighter side, because this is too dark. If you were to use this, it'd be like, it'd be almost like it was evening or something. You can see that the lighting on the arms is still quite bright. It's bright outside, despite being overcast. So you'd want to use this half of the image and copy it onto this half of the image, and then kind of match it up with the eraser tool, or however you want to do that. And you should end up with hopefully something like this, where the lighting on this side is pretty close to the lighting on the other side. You could maybe even grab the burn tool as a good tool to use and set it to highlights or midtones, and you could go over this portion, or even just grab your regular brush tool, make the color black, and just go over it a little bit to turn this a little darker, because it'd be too bright, I think, if you had this on this side as well. But you could, if you wanted to, you could copy this onto this side. Because the train is head-on, you can do that pretty effectively, and it works out. And the other thing I did, well, there's two other things I did. I also changed it to yellow. There wasn't really a reason for that. I just thought, for some reason, it kind of looked better with the rest of the image. It's all kind of greens and yellows in this image, and the orange is a little harsh. And I think with the harsh orange, people kind of take notice of that very quickly, and it can even make people focus on it more and kind of notice more flaws. Whereas with the yellow, it blends into the image better. That's just my opinion. That might not be really true, but I think it works for me. And if that's something that you guys have with your image, then you could give a shot at it. And the third thing I did was I added lights. I added lights to the trains. Previously not on lights, because when a train is running and it's moving, that's kind of the feel that we want to have here. The lights are going to be on. They're probably a little bright because it's daytime and you wouldn't actually see lights being this bright during the day, but I don't think it's a big deal. You could adjust accordingly. So now we have the lighting matching a little bit better. The depth of field is better. It's matching the image more accurately. and we have the lights on the train. I think the rest of the train might be a little too bright, so I just reduced the opacity of this one, and then I stuck the original train underneath to kind of darken it a little bit. And anyway, this is pretty much what we have now. So now what we have to go from here is pretty much just the smaller details. So we have things like shadows. Now in the original image, the biggest shadow that you're going to notice, because it's overcast, this shadow, this big shadow on the side here that the sun is casting on the train, it's pretty much non-existent. Otherwise there'd be a shadow of this guy right here, or on this side, or whatever, from wherever the sun would be. But you don't need a shadow like that. You don't want one, because there really wouldn't be one. Overcast is actually, it makes things a lot easier for shadows, to be honest. But this shadow is something we're going to have. So to do that, you're basically just going to want to grab your brush tool. You're going to set the size to however you want it, hardness at 0, and you're just kind of, you're going to want to put a layer underneath the train, obviously. And then you're just going to brush in underneath with whatever opacity value you think works. You can always change the opacity layer on the layer, obviously. And that's obviously very heavy, but you get the idea. And then you're just going to want to change the opacity on that and change the shape of it until you get something you like. You can see here with this shadow, it's very light. You don't want it too heavy, you don't want it too noticeable. You can maybe turn it up a little bit, but it's there. And if you look at it without it, there is a noticeable difference, and it does look better with it. The last thing, detail-wise, is that the train, it blends in pretty well, but it's not interacting with the environment. And I think that environment interaction is something that's important. It's something that someone might not notice right away that it's doing that, but it just makes the entire image that you're adding into the document blend in better. If it's interacting with the environment, it makes it seem more realistic because it's doing something, you know, to everything else. So we're just gonna do a really simple thing, and we're gonna add some smoke coming from the sides of the train. So like this, and then, you know, we'll do it on the other side as well. And I think that really gives it a nice effect of it kind of being in the image, you know. This is probably really unrealistic. I really doubt that a train on tracks, because I've never seen a train on the tracks do anything like this. But for the purpose of our image, I think it works. So you're gonna want to, you know, find whatever your interaction is, and you're just gonna want to put it in the image and fit it in there and make it look realistic. This is obviously not very heavy smoke, but it's still very obvious in the image. So one last thing we're gonna do is you're just gonna add your color correction, however you want to do that. And I think this gives it a fine, well, first of all, it makes the image look a lot better. It really pops. And because I'm doing these as adjustment layers on top of the train, it adjusts the train with the surrounding image. And that really makes sure that it matches color-wise, vibrance-wise, blacks-wise. You know, it makes sure it kind of matches up, and that will finally add your final little bit of realism that you might have been looking for. So you know, I hope I've inspired you guys to get out there and make something awesome, or I hope I've helped you out with your image if that's what you're looking to do. And like this video if you liked it, dislike it if you didn't. If you really liked it, subscribe, and leave requests in the comments for more videos.